Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Good morning, devotees, Prabhus. We are going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 3rd chapter, verse number 1 and 2. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nasta Prayesha Vadreshu Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Thank you, Targa Prabhu, for posting the verse. So, here we go. Okay. So the verse goes like this. Shri Sukha Uvacha Nabirapatya Kamo Prajaya Merudevya Bhagavantam Jagya Purusham Avahitat Ma Yajata. Excuse me. Synonyms. Shri Sukha Uvacha, Sukadeva Goswami said, Nabhi, the son of Maharaja Agnidra, a Patyakama, desiring to have sons, a Prajaya, who had not given birth to any children, Merudevya, with Merudevi, Bhagavantam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Jagya Purusham, Lord Vishnu, the master and enjoyer of all performances of sacrifice, Avahita Atma, with great attention, Ajayata, Ayajata, offer prayers and worshipped. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Shukadeva Goswami continued to speak. Maharaj Nabi, the son of Agnidra, wished to have sons, and therefore he attentively began to offer prayers and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the master and enjoyer of all sacrifices. Maharaja's Nabi's wife, Merudevi, who had not given birth to any children at that time, also worshipped Lord Vishnu along with her husband. Next verse, since there is no purport. Tasyaha bhava shradaya vishuddha bhavena yajata pravakyesu pracharatsu dravyadesha kala mantrat vigdakshina vidana yogo papatya duradigamo pi bhagavan bhagavata vatsalya taya supratika atmanam aparajitam nija janabi pretarta viditsaya grihita hridayo hridayangamam manu nayananandana vyavabiramam avischakara. That was a very long word. Nayananandanan vayabhapiramam. Tasya, when he, Nabi, Havava, certainly, Shradaya, with great faith and devotion, Vishuddha Bhavena, with a pure, uncontaminated mind, Yajata was worshipping. pravargyeshu, while the fruitive activities called pravargya, pracharatsu, were being performed, dravya, the ingredients, desha, place, kala, time, mantra, hymns, ritvik, priests conducting the ceremony, dakshina, gifts to the priests, vidhana, regulative principles, yoga, and of the means, upapatya, by the performance, duradigama, not obtainable, api, although Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavata Vatsalyataya, because of his being very affectionate to his devotee. Supratika, possessing a very beautiful form, Atmanam, himself, Aparajitam, not to be conquered by anyone, Nija Jana, of his devotee, Abhipreta Artha, the desire, Viditsaya, to fulfill, Grihita Ridaya, his heart being attracted, Ridayangamam, captivating, Mana Nayana Anandana, pleasing to the mind and eyes, Avavyava, by the limbs, Abhiramam, beautiful, Avishchakara, manifested. Translation. In the performance of a sacrifice, there are 7 transcendental means to obtain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 1, by sacrificing valuable things or eatables. 2, by acting in terms of place. 3, by acting in terms of time. 4, by offering hymns. 5, by going through the priest. 6, by offering gifts to the priests. And 7, by observing the regulative principles. However, one cannot always obtain the Supreme Lord through his paraphernalia. Nonetheless, the Lord is affectionate to his devotee. Therefore, when Maharaj Nabi, who was a devotee, worshipped and offered prayers to the Lord with great faith and devotion, and with a pure and uncontaminated mind, superficially performing some yajna in the line of pravargya, the kind Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to his affection for his devotees, appeared before King Nabi in his unconquerable and captivating form with 4 hands. In this way, to fulfill the desire of his devotee, the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested himself in his beautiful body before his devotee. This body pleases the mind and eyes of the devotees. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said, Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanjas chasmi tatvatahat tomam tattvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Bhagavad Gita 18:55. One can understand and see the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the process of devotional service and not in any other way. Although Maharaj Nabi performed prescribed duties and sacrifices, it should still be considered that the Lord appeared before him not due to his sacrifices, but because of his devotional service. It was for this reason that the Lord agreed to appear before him in his beautiful bodily features. As stated in Brahma Samhita 5:30, the Supreme Lord in his original nature is very beautiful. Venum kwanantam aravinda dalayataksham varhavatam sam asitam buddhasundarangam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, although blackish, is very, very beautiful. The verse, well, I'm just going to go through the whole thing. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Nangayati Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurundina Taranam Paramananda Maravam Shri Chaitanyam Ishwaram. Vanchakalpatarvyascha kripasindhuvya vacha patitanam pavanevyo vaishnavivyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. The first two verses of the third chapter of the fifth canto once again show that there is a personal God having a relationship with whomever invokes him through the means of devotion. Even though there's a request here, as Maharaj Nabi wanted to have a child, so he attentively began to offer prayers and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the word is curiously challenging, as we all offer prayers. I'm not talking about just Vaishnavas. Everybody offers prayers, pretty much, except for some very unfortunate agnostic, atheistic types. At one time or another, everybody offers prayers to the Supreme, whether they are, when Krishna classifies them, whether they're in danger or they need something, they're in distress, or they are curious, or they're actually pursuing their interests. But even out of those who are actually interested in the absolute truth, but there are selected prayers, and the prayers, they have some intention, like, if you give me this, I'll do that. I mean, there's a lot of selection to be done. And then the word attentively comes in place here, attentively. As we usually, as aspiring Vaishnavas, we go in front of the deities and maybe offer some prayers. Do we do it attentively? Or is simply, has simply become perfunctory, that we do it because it's a family tradition or it's a Vaishnava tradition, because we were told to do that? Do we feel the same way towards the deities that we felt when we saw them for the first time? So this is an important factor that should be reintroduced, if it is not there anymore, attentively. And when we chant our japa, are we doing it attentively? Because this is the greatest danger, according to Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, as he uses the word madness to define someone who is actually chanting and not paying attention, as Krishna is present in his name. So are we aware? Are we attentive to this point, that Krishna is his name, and we are dealing with Krishna, but just losing concentration? So Maharaj Nabi, son of Agnidra, very good dynasty, is offering prayers and worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead to have a child. However, his request is not an ordinary child. He wants the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his child. And Krishna eventually comes to him, shows up in the in the sacrifice. And this sacrifice is, and Prabhupada defines, there is, in the translation, there are 7 items about how to obtain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of God through his tadiya, through his paraphernalia, indirectly. And, going through the priest and acting in terms of time and place and offering eatables, hymns, the whole thing. But this is because Maharaj Nabi was offering prayers with great faith and devotion and with a pure, uncontaminated mind, superficially performing some yajna. But because of kindness, because of the Supreme Lord being kind to his devotees, he actually showed up himself. When the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan was inaugurated, Prabhupada arranged for local priests and for South Indian Brahmins as well to do an elaborate sacrifice just to please the locals, basically, so people wouldn't complain. But he said that the installation could have been done just with chanting Hare Krishna, because the principle is samsiddhim haritoshanam. If Krishna is not pleased, then everything is spoiled. Just like sacrifice, if all paraphernalia is brought and all the mantras are said and so on, Krishna already confessed to be more attracted to the rebuking of Mother Yasoda than to the prayers of the personified Vedas. So who could offer better prayers, more qualified than the personified Vedas? And Krishna is already declaring, not as interesting as Mother Yasoda chiding me for breaking pots and giving yogurt to the monkeys. So there has to be an attentive, uncontaminated mind, and has to be done for the pleasure of Krishna, not for one's own interests. This is the way to do everything. Even having a child. Of course, nowadays, having children is the consequence of sexual intercourse. Well, it's always been, but sexual intercourse was basically the tool by which to bring a great soul into one's lair. And nowadays, it's kind of like a bad consequence of sex. So sex became important, whereas sex is just a tool. It's like having a TV set and you don't like the program that you see. Change the channel. You don't go with a hammer and destroy the TV because you don't like the program. So people have sex. Sex is natural, okay, and so is pregnancy. And so is also natural for the child that is born to have a loving father and mother. So if sex is natural, so is pregnancy, and so is the family dynamics. Maharaj Nabi didn't want just an ordinary child. He knew that in order to obtain progeny, he will have to perform sacrifice, meditation and worship and hymns and the whole thing. Of course, nowadays it's been somewhat summarized and reduced to you chant 50 rounds before you procreate, and that hopefully you may get a couple good names during your 50 rounds, and that would elevate your consciousness. That's the hope. But actually, the kings and those who were in higher position in society, and they wanted to deal with the problems that the citizens brought about, they had to have very good progeny, because they had to rule over others. You don't put an unqualified person at the helm of a kingdom. Just like Prabhupada used the Indian saying that if you put a dog on the throne of a king and you throw up, actually he said two things. He threw a bone, and also he throw a shoe. And the dog will jump and catch it because it's his nature. So all these inbreeding that has been going on in the world in the name of royalty, it's not such thing. There has to be sacrifice, there has to be prayer, there has to be purification. And then, if you're lucky, you get good progeny that actually will solve problems instead of creating new problems. So this sacrifice, this performance that entails paraphernalia and hymns and all these things are not the crucial part of it. The crucial part is to satisfy the Supreme Lord. Again, samsidin haritoshanam, for the pleasure of Hari, and with great faith and devotion. So the verse that Prabhupada quotes in the purport, in the 1855, one can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. When one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Let's read the purport of Srila Prabhupada in the Gita, or at least part of it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, in his plenary portions cannot be understood by mental speculation, nor by the known devotees. Oh, there is a serious limitation. If anyone wants to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has to take to pure devotional service under the guidance of a pure devotee. Otherwise, the truth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead will always be hidden. As already stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:25, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya. He's not revealed to anyone, to everyone. No one can understand God simply by erudite scholarship or mental speculation. Only one who is actually engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service can understand what Krishna is. University degrees are not helpful. One who is fully conversant with the Krishna science becomes eligible to enter into the spiritual kingdom, the abode of Krishna. Becoming Brahman does not mean that one loses his identity. Devotional service is there. And as long as devotional service exists, there must be God, the devotee, and the process of devotional service. Such knowledge is never vanquished, even after liberation. Liberation involves getting free from the concept of material life. In spiritual life, the same distinction is there, the same individuality is there, but in pure Krishna consciousness. One should not mistakenly think that the word Vijate to theory and one's individuality to engage in his association and render service unto him. For instance, a green bird enters a green tree not to become one with the tree, but to enjoy the fruits of the tree. Impersonalists generally give the example of a river flowing into the ocean of mercy. This may be a source of happiness for the impersonalist, but the personalist keep his personal individuality like an aquatic in the ocean. We find so many living entities within the ocean if we go deep. Surface acquaintance with the ocean is not sufficient. One must have complete knowledge of the aquatics living in the ocean depths. Because of his pure devotional service, a devotee can understand the transcendental qualities and the opulences of the Supreme Lord in truth. As it is stated in the 11th chapter, only by devotional service can one understand. The same is confirmed here. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by devotional service and enter into his kingdom. After attainment of a Brahmabhuta stage of freedom from material conceptions, devotional service begins by one's hearing about the Lord. When one hears about the Supreme Lord, automatically the Brahmabhuta stage develops. A material contamination, greediness, and lust for sense enjoyment disappears. As lust and desires disappear from the heart of a devotee, he becomes more attached to the service of the Lord, and by such attachment, he becomes free from material contamination. In that state of life, he can understand the Supreme Lord. This is the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam also. After liberation, the process of bhakti or transcendental service continues. The Vedanta Sutra 4.1.12 confirms this. Pranayat tatrapihi drishtam. This means that after liberation, the process of devotional service continues. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, real devotional liberation is defined as the reinstatement of a living entity in his own identity, his own constitutional position. The constitutional position is already explained. Every living entity is a part and parcel, fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his constitutional position is to serve. After liberation, this service is never stopped. Actual liberation is getting free from misconceptions of life. And I did look up, I did a little research on this phrase that Prabhupada uses, only by devotional service. So where are all these 4 words, if they're mentioned in many places? And yes, they are. So there's Bhagavad Gita, the chapters are from 7 to 12, chapters from 13 to 18, second canto of the Bhagavatam, third canto, many times, fourth canto, many times, fifth canto as well, sixth canto, seventh canto. This is not some casual quotation. In the 8th canto, in the 9th canto, in the 10th, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, both in the Adi Lila, Madhya Lila, and in the book Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is only by devotional service. These 4 words, even in the book Renunciation Through Wisdom, and lectures that Prabhupada gave from 1969, 1970, 68 as well, 76. So this is an address, an arrival address in Los Angeles in February of 1975. Prabhupada says, so you have to understand these things. If you understand properly what is Krishna, this much qualification will make you fit for being liberated even in this life. And he quotes the Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Jama Karma, Chamedivyam. It is all stated there. So Krishna can be understood only by devotional service, by no other. You cannot speculate Krishna may be like this. Just like Mayavadis, they imagine. The imagination will not help you. You cannot imagine God. That is foolishness. God is not subjected to your imagination. Then he's not God. Why he should be subjected to your imagination? So these things are to be understood properly. And one can understand properly when he's pure devotee. Otherwise, not. Naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samavrita. That's the 725 of the Gita. I'm not exposed to everyone. Why? Or revealed. Why he should be exposed to everyone? When he is pleased, he will reveal himself to you. Savamukhe hi jivado swayameva spuratyada. That's from my Bhakti Rasamrita Sin. You cannot ask the sun to appear immediately. When he is pleased, he will appear in the morning. Similarly, you have to please Krishna so that he will appear before you and talk with you and bless you. So this is a very serious point. And only by devotional service. We may be accused of being partial or limited or narrow-minded or claiming exclusivity, but we are not. We're just giving it away. Where is the exclusivity there? We're not trying to get the pie just for ourselves. We're trying to give it to everybody. We're just reminding those who had other ideas that only by devotional service is that Krishna is revealed. Because what do we really have that Krishna wants from us? He doesn't need our prayers. He doesn't need gifts. He doesn't lack anything that we possess that he's desperate to obtain, except for our love and devotion, because that he doesn't have. Even the tiny, fragmental, insignificant, infinitesimal living entity has something that God doesn't have. The whole appearance of Lord Chaitanya took place because of that. Because Krishna wanted to experience something that he didn't have, and that is voluntary love. Why? Krishna thought, why is that people love me? In particular, Radharani, who is the best at it. Why does she love me so much? I need to see. I need to feel from a completely different point of view. So that's why Krishna appeared as Lord Chaitanya. So that's why, if you want the attention of Krishna, you have to pay attention to yourself and be exclusive and give your heart entirely, not a portion, not something else, not mixed with anything. Unadulterated, unalloyed devotional service. That will conquer the unconquerable. All right. 7:40. It's a good time to stop. And we'll give enough time to devotees to present their questions, comments, or contentions.
Hare Krishna, Sarvatma Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
I thank you once again for a very nice class.
Thank you, Prabhu.
It's a great point. Chiefly the fact that can be understood only by devotional service. I also did a little study of the phrase, and as you point out, Srila Prabhupada mentions this all over 400 times. He utilizes that phrase, usually referring to Bhagavad Gita 1855. But not only does he do that, a bunch of other acharyas also use the same phrase, making the same point, because Krishna himself made the point. It's an important point, and it's just a fact. Only by devotional service. So, yeah, you even find in some of the songs of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he used the same phrase. Very important points. And when Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions this, he also talks about the Lord's devotees, that's also an important ingredient, that devotional service and those who are attached to devotional service by their association and the service of such individuals, because efforts to try to please Krishna by devotional service may be fruitless, because Krishna is not easy to please, because we are very insignificant and he is very great. He has got lots of big things going on. He has everything he needs, requires, or wants. He has no needs, but he has everything. So what can we do? How can we please Krishna by our service? Of course, he's pleased by simply our love and devotion, even the simplest thing offered: leaf, flower, fruit, water. From one perspective, he's not difficult to please, but Srila Prabhupada gives the example that a very powerful, important person is sometimes difficult to approach. If you don't have an existing relationship with them, then let's say you try to approach the President of the United States, not a very easy thing to do. You have to make an appointment with some secretary. You will have to go through all kinds of security clearances, and to begin with, the president's got to have a reason to want to see you. Why should he be bothered? Many individuals will want to see the president, but he hasn't got time for everyone. But Srila Prabhupada says that if you can do something to please an individual who is very dear to the president, like the president's got a young child, then very easily, just by Srila Prabhupada says, offering the child a 2 pice lozenge, so a little piece of candy, you please the child, then immediately that very important person will become pleased with you, and then a relationship can develop from there. So to honor and respect, to serve and please the Lord's devotees is the way to easily please Krishna himself by our devotional service. And in the absence of that, it's not so easy necessarily to get the Lord's attention. And conversely, if we neglect the devotees, then we can expect failure in our attempts to please Krishna. He will not be pleased with you if you're not pleasing his devotees, particularly if you have displeased his devotees, if you neglect them, if you offend them in some way, then you wind up on Krishna's list, the bad list. You don't want to be on that list, then everything goes wrong for you in your life. I've been realizing this more and more as time progresses, and especially here at Kitanagiri, the hospital for the heart. Our dealings with devotees are very, very important, and we sometimes don't realize the extent to which we are dependent upon one another. we may think that this or that devotee is not worthy of our respect or service because he or she is very neophyte, very new to devotional service, or not particularly advanced, or whatever, or has some particular unfortunate history. There may be so many rationales, but my own realization is that every devotee is extremely important, no matter how big or small. It's not just simply that we should honor and respect some big sannyasi or some guru, someone recognized as being very advanced in Krishna consciousness. But actually, if you neglect any of Krishna's devotees, Krishna will not be favorably impressed. He is impressed when you are always remaining extremely humble, thinking yourself lower than the straw in the street, prepared to give all honor and respect to others, anyone, everyone, even the non-devotees, even other species. That pleases Krishna. I have a practical experience just recently. Sunday was my birthday. It was also the birthday of Mother Parijata and little Madhava. And devotees expressed birthday wishes, happy birthday wishes to me and the others. And at the time, I was suffering ill health to an unusual degree. I had become completely exhausted, and I was struggling to try to finish my rounds. It takes me all day to try to finish my rounds. My last round, the last time I timed my last round, it took 1 hour and 37 minutes to chant one round. Most devotees can't imagine this, but if you live long enough, you may get to find out what that's like. It's terrible. So unfortunately, I was aware that devotees were offering some kind words for me, and I reasoned that I've got so many rounds to chant. I'm actually behind in my rounds. I can't afford at this time to interact with devotees. I need to just get my rounds done. That's my top priority. And I came to Gitanagari actually to leave my body. I came to, I moved onto the farm expecting to die. And my focus is the chanting of my rounds and the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. I give my best energy every day to my rounds and participating in Srimad Bhagavatam class. So I thought I'm behind in my rounds. I don't have the time to thank the devotees and to interact with them. I like to communicate with each individual personally, write them a little something personally and thank them and say a few kind words. And I thought, my God, I don't have the time for that because, I have a lot of friends and, I'm getting phone calls from all over the world. I'm getting communications from everywhere from lots of people. And it's very time consuming to have to deal with all those individuals. It's not a chore, I love the devotees. It's wonderful, but it consumes a lot of time and I can't finish my rounds. So I thought, okay, I'm just, I really need to get my rounds done. I'm just going to chant Hare Krishna. And in the days that followed, gradually, I found that it became more difficult to hear and chant. My senses became increasingly more agitated. And basically the rug got pulled out from under me. I felt that, my Krishna consciousness had taken a serious hit. I'm feeling, a big dark cloud hanging over my head, and everything starts going horribly wrong in my life. Investments are now poised to lose a god awful amount of Lakshmi. All kinds of problems beginning to arise. And I was thinking about this, and, I'm thick, I'm slow, I'm dull. It takes a little while sometimes for things to sink in. And suddenly I realized, oh my God, I recognize the symptoms because I've been through it so many times, a host of symptoms. And I realized, oh my God, I'm suffering the effects of Vaishnava aparad. What have I done? And I thought about this, and I realized, oh my God, I just neglected a bunch of wonderful devotees. So many individuals have been kind to me, and I've neglected them, and now I'm really suffering. And let me tell you, I'm really suffering. I'm having a really hard time. You can't neglect the devotees. Devotees are so extremely important. Every devotee is very important. Anyway, I don't want to.
I have a verse actually from the same chapter that we are reading, it's text number 14, to back you up. Dear Lord, unless one worships the lotus feet of great devotees, one will be conquered by the illusory energy, and his intelligence will be bewildered. Indeed, who has not been carried away by the waves of material enjoyment, which are like poison? Your illusory energy is unconquerable. No one can see the path of this material energy or tell how it is working. So fortunately, you got the realization. We're still way behind you, just waiting for the consequences of Vaishnava Parad to fructify, so we can, follow your footsteps. Although I don't think you have offended anybody. You're just you take the humble position, which is the position of every Vaishnava who is a real Vaishnava. Anyway, I appreciate your insight, Prabhu. Well, if you don't mind, we'll go to Kaylee, her virtual hand must be exhausted by now. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Tell us what you have. Kaylee, still there? Okay.
Hi Krishna. Sorry, in the milking barn, but yeah, it was just a quick comment on what Tarako Prabhu was saying. Because I hear this a lot, people referring to Krishna as kind of like president and needing certain qualifications, etc. But I'm just always so confused why does Prabhupada and why do we refer to Krishna in such like a material kind of relationship? Like my understanding and my feelings and experiences, it feels more like a fatherly thing where the qualification is more so like thankfulness, gratitude, and love rather than maybe something we would experience with the president. So I'm just confused a little bit why we speak about it so much. Am I misunderstanding? And yeah.
If I may clarify that a little bit, Krishna is the source of all relationships. And this is simply an analogy. An analogy is not identical to the point that is illustrating, is simply some simile, something akin to what one is trying to explain. So the position of Krishna and our position is quite different, even though we are linked permanently by being so intimately connected, as we are parts and parcels of Krishna. We are made of the same substance. But however, the degree and the preponderance of one over another is abysmal. Krishna is like, if you want to think of someone that is in a superior position to yours, you may think of a president of a country, but that doesn't mean that the president is more than an ordinary person like you are. But his position is such that it actually occupies, has a distinction that you cannot approach him by normal means. You cannot just go to his house and knock on the door and exact and demand admission and an audience. So Krishna is in a position which is vastly superior to us and doesn't have anything to gain, because we don't have anything to offer to him except for our love and devotion. And of course, he's not some cosmic bureaucrat like the president would be in that position. He is eternally linked with us. He's the best that we have. He's the best father, the only father, the only mother, the only friend, the only lover, and we interact through with each other based on that relationship, not the other way around. So it's not that Krishna is the president and therefore we have kind of a formal relationship and have to go through a lot of hoops and bureaucracy in order to connect with him. It's just simply an analogy, and I find it harmless, really. Jagannath Pandit Prabhu, you have.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Jagannath Pandit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you for the class and the topics. Just I appreciate the depth that you went into in examining those 4 words, only by devotional service. And also I appreciated Tarka Prabhu's points. And it made I see a connection between what you were sharing and what he was sharing, in that devotional service is 2 words, and one can't be without the other for it to be devotional service. Whereas service without devotion is not loving service, and devotion without action, some service. It's a nice sentiment, but not really loving actions. It should manifest in loving actions and service. And I feel that Tarka Prabhu was revealing his innermost heart as he was sharing that, and shows the depth of his contemplation. Because of course, we're not offended, but for him, it's a reflection of his consciousness, and how much he's diving deeper in his wanting to connect and love and relate with the devotees. But I had a question. You were talking about prayers, and it got me thinking about the different types of prayers, because prayers are in different forms, and sometimes they're not articulated, sometimes they're articulated, sometimes they're appeals or actual desires that are articulated or not articulated. Sometimes they're praise and glorification and gratitude, or praying for blessings, some intention behind it. But I was wondering, couldn't we also say that prayers are none other than desires, sometimes articulated and sometimes not? Just like our desires, sometimes we articulate them, sometimes we're not articulating them. Sometimes we're in touch with them, sometimes we're not, but it still affects our actions and our thoughts and so on. And how, because sometimes the prayers are for what we want, supplications. And then sometimes our prayers are for what Krishna wants, or just glorification. So can you comment on prayers and in their connection to desires, if they're not the same or equal?
Well, thank you. And you put me in a difficult situation, as I'm aware of Vandanam, the offering of prayers, is one of 9 processes of bhakti. And but what kind of prayers are the most effective? And are we praying for relief? Are we praying for just to get free from misery? Are all prayers geared in that way, and until our contaminated mind gives up the desire to enjoy this world, that we are basically trying to take advantage, but through prayer? It could be that we have this mentality, thinking, oh, Krishna, please free me from this, free me from that. Excuse me. Just like saying, free me from suffering, free me from disease, free me from unhappy family life, free me from hunger and thirst, free me, all these things. Yes, they are to ameliorate or eliminate these miseries that we undergo. But true prayers, prayers are on different levels, like pretty much everything else, and there are prayers that are contaminated by the modes of nature. So that's why we have the guidance of the previous acharyas and great Vaishnavas that give us a format, a template, if you can call it, that there are prayers. This is how one should pray. This is how you may find throughout the Bhagavatam whole sections of prayers. And one may think, oh, when am I going to get through this? It's just like reading the first chapter of a Bhagavad Gita, and there's so many names of different people that they don't even show up in the coming 17 chapters. And you may think, oh, when am I going to get through this? And why? For one thing, as far as the names of the protagonists in the Bhagavad Gita that are mentioned in the first chapter and nowhere else in the Gita, except for a handful. If you knew the Mahabharata, if you knew the whole history, then you will be very familiar and very happy to hear different names, and you know the situation, you know the histories. But if you don't, then it's just like names. It's just an accumulation of names. So if one is actually well-intended and want to satisfy Krishna instead of Krishna satisfy one, then this prayers are guidance, that are a template for us to learn how to pray. This is how you pray. This is when Krishna, you want Krishna to hear you, and instead of look at your shopping list, then one should take advantage of these wonderful prayers given by so many different devotees. They're all over the Bhagavatam. And the Bhagavatam is the cream of the crop of the Vedic literature. There's no higher than that. So why would be these prayers included if they are superfluous, superficial, repetitive, or obsolete? They aren't. They are guidance for us to learn how to pray. So it is possible, it is likely too, that some of our prayers are contaminated by our own selfish desires. But some of the prayers are based on our true desires, because desire is eternal.
Prabhupada,
Oh,
Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada.
that's the end of my answer, since the Guru Puja took over. So I'm going to take my cue. Thank you, Prabhu, for attending Bhagavatam class. All the best to you. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada.
Shri Krishna Gadadha
确实啊，也是个拿上来这个，这个要到买不着，刚买，也不能买，包的，to us，I know three, something that's already，上来个，example。Always is so good. It's always it's so good. Always always share your lot of student opportunity. You can chat and cure emotional feelings without knowledge to go to beyond that. It's what solution to your suffering. They versus Christian. I don't believe she's doing our words and equals those that I go with the affection to believe that the open mind out of the house and those on my work twisted wrong. You can know about that. Human study out there and start making humans destroy it. So I would do it person doing a friend of the person with the problem. Not the video. Even if it's you, you're getting wrong. You're so good. So, but the word of God. What I had, I guess, late breakfast, stop over lunch, from the trick at there, whatnot. Like lunch, not take care. That's kind of the regimen. Yes. Oh, I put the try, it's very, many times, not just one, many times with fast goes both. One. And we would like, just make sure you get the pictures. Yeah, whenever I hear, oh, you do it. Yeah, I know. Okay, people. Yeah. But, and if you can convey the same message to them, because we community all the time, the class goes over and you hear, you will, then you say, okay, yes, you just mute it and say, yeah. You stay? Wow. It's in favor to look like any, especially. Yeah. beyond the earthly area or experiencing jurisdiction and almost foolishly they dare to declare that God is there. The songs of Brahma and Jinta and Prabhupada will surely help such souls in their march toward the personal Godhead in the spiritual kingdom, which is lying beyond their sensuous age of inspection. The so-called astronomers cannot even definitely give us information of the visible star, which is overflooded with sunlight during daytime and moonlight at night. We can have our learn about spiritual kingdom from the Bhagavad Gita that it is situated far beyond the visible sky. And in that sky, there is no need of sunlight or moonlight or even electricity. There are innumerable spiritual planets that self-evolve far, and the cross estimate of the sky is given in the Bhagavad Gita that the world wherein there are innumerable suns and more is only one fourth of the whole kingdom of God. This material is also part of the kingdom of God. But this kingdom of God is described as made of inferior energy on account of it and is compared with the mass of clouds in the sky. When there is a mass of clouds in the sky, there is certainly torrents of rain and there is a type of creation of new vegetation on account of such rainfall. But in spite of all such variegatedness, manifestation of inner seed, of fruits and flowers, the whole soul is only temporary. When the season is over, everything fades away in different situations and the temporary manifestation comes to an end. Therefore, the material world is called three phases of existence, namely creation, sustenance, and dissolution at last. This creation and dissolution is going on perpetually like seasonal changes, and the portion of the vast sky where such studying indicatedness is taking place, and again becoming out of sight, is called the material world. And beyond this material manifestation of indicatedness, there is a world of spiritual sky where everything is eternal, full of life, bliss, and knowledge. Distinct from the non-eternal visible existence of. In the material world, everything is struggling hard for existence. But the cruel laws of material nature will not allow anybody to exist, although every one of us aspires to exist eternally in full this life of perfect knowledge. This fantasy is available in the Brahma Sutta, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna, and is transcendental form is God, full of things. In this world, not only Krishna